welcome to today's Value Talk. I'm sure you guys are enjoying Value Talk YouTube channel, watching the videos, and also making full use of the advisory panel through our Telegram channel and taking advice, whatever is required on finance, real estate, higher studies abroad, career transition, and jobs, uh, allied real estate services, etc. Do make use of it, spread the word. Today's value talk is highly relevant. It's about let's understand how the corporate HR views an armed forces officer. What are the success mantras, if any? How we should prepare before we switch to the corporate sector? And for today's talk, we have one of the industry leaders who's with us, highly acclaimed, uh, Miss Kavita Singh. She's CHRO of the United Breweries and one of the emerging HR leaders of corporate India. Okay, while Kavita joins, I'll briefly introduce Kavita. Uh, she has a very illustrious career uh, spanning more than 20 years. She has been in uh, very major industries and very big organizations like Hindustan Zinc, AP Moller, Mars, Tata AIG, etc., covering a career spanning to almost about 20 plus years. And she's kind of a brand in herself. If you Google her, I'm sure you will find uh, Kavita figuring in top searches. So let's welcome Kavita.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, Kavita.
Hi.
Welcome, Kavita.
Thank you.
I can understand, and we are really grateful that you have spared time and joined us today. As you can see, there are about 73 officers who have joined, and they are eagerly waiting to listen to you. So, Kavita, before we start, can you just introduce yourself briefly? Though I have given the introduction.
Okay. Okay. First of all, I apologize. I'm still in office, so I've had a long day today. So I may not look very fresh and enthusiastic in the call, but that's not at all an intent. Um, but I'm very, very happy to be here, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, Vipul and Manoj, uh, Manish. The other thing is, I wanted to just give a quick background as you have requested. So what we will do is we will have this session for the stipulated time that you have, um,
Yeah.
and I will try to share my experience and some learnings that I've gathered over the past 20 odd years of working. Um, so I have been working for 20 years. I have worked in organizations like, I think in your introduction you did speak about Tata AIG, ICICI,
Yeah.
Prudential,
In-
and also Maersk, which has been a very strong influence in my career. And then I have also had the opportunity to work for an Indian promoter-driven organization called Hindustan Zinc, and now for the past year and a half, I am working with a company called United Breweries, which has been taken over by Heineken. So I have been appointed by
So,
Heineken.
Kavita, before we move ahead, I must tell you, all the participants who are there, and including me today, are adding to your company's profit.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Right. So, right, Kavita, I will just set the tone of the
Yeah.
talk today. I will just
So,
tell you uh,
yeah. So just
what is
just
the,
before you just before you start, just one more minute, please.
yeah,
So
yeah, please.
so this organization that we have right now is of course the largest beer brand in the country, and Heineken is the second largest beer company in the world. So it gives a huge opportunity for a international player like Heineken to work in India and grow in India. So there is a huge growth potential in a market like India for beer, which is underpenetrated. So the overall consumption is less than 2 liters or around 2 liters per annum uh, uh, per capita in India, which is very, very low. So yes, but
I hope you don't want to be drunk all the time, huh? You don't want us to be drunk all the time.
no, I don't say that, but 2 liters per annum is very, very low as compared to global averages, and hence there is a huge opportunity to have a higher penetration in this market. That's one. Second is one of the things that I would like to share over the next, hour or so with you is that when we work with organizations that are capital intensive, that are service oriented, that are manufacturing, industrial, or financial services, or different types of businesses, they do take decisions on their people and their structure very differently. So what does it mean for a population like this, and how can you prepare for that? That is also something that I have in mind, and we can
Sure,
talk about that. Yeah. So over to you.
sure. Right, right, Kavita. Thank you so much for giving your this thing also how you want this talk to be structured, and that's a good suggestion also. And what I wanted to tell you before starting this talk was that we have three categories of officers who are part of this, who are in the audience today. One is uh, a short service commission officer who's coming after 5 to 10 years of service. Another is uh, officer who takes early retirement between 15 to 20 years, and then third category is who do their full service. So why I'm telling you this is because the kind of advice which you give uh, may be different for all these three categories, and I just wanted you to understand this aspect. Uh, so people are coming out at different stages, right?
Yes.
So that was the intent, and uh, so let's start. I just wanted to know, Kavita. We have seen some tough times in last 2 3 years, both for the industry as well as for the people who are wanting to join the industry. And I mean the job sector per se. So are we back to normal? Are there jobs available now?
Yeah. So actually, we are more than back to normal, Manish,
Okay.
and the hiring is at an all-time high for the past 7 8 months, if I may say so. The hiring freeze that we saw during COVID, because it was a period of uncertainty and a lot of companies also laid off. They did not recruit for the open positions. Uh, so you see that with a vengeance coming back. So you see that you name it, whether it is e-commerce, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is telecom, whether it is financial services, whether it is FMCG, most of whether it is medical, medicine, research, biomedicals, IT, everything is on a boom and they are recruiting. Uh, the only sector where I see a change in the curve is the startups. So in the beginning of the year, we saw a huge recruitment drive for startups. Starting from the last quarter of last year, but that is something which is tapering down, and you would read a lot about the startups, not some of the startups not doing well and hence laying off. So apart from the startups, I do not see, I see most of the other sectors recruiting really aggressively, and the recruitment, both the recruitment function and the consultants are really having a field day. So they are doing really well, and there is a huge demand for qualified people for specific jobs. There are certain skills which are higher in demand than the others. So, for example, e-commerce, for example, IT, analytics, digital. This is a space where you see a lot of requirement and not enough talent available. So these are spaces where there is more requirement than the others. But overall, the demand is higher than the supply right now.
Oh, that's something, it gives us a high to all those people who are planning to switch, because it's always there in the back of our mind. Uh, uh, Whether it's a recession going on, we are heading towards recession, and all those things we keep hearing. So that's really heartening to know. Also, more than 1,000. I may be way off the mark. Also, I have not done research, but I'm just taking a figure with so many officers from armed forces, whether it is Navy, Air Force, or Army. They retire every year. But and as I told you, as I said earlier, that somebody is retiring after 5 to 10 years. कोई 15-20 साल के बाद आता है बाहर, and कोई जो है वो after doing his entire service, you know.
Mm.
So they, when they are observed in the industry, so they are. I have met most of the officers are not, uh, taken at a level where what they deserve, whether it can be in terms of salary or it can be in terms of position, both, you know. So, what is the, how can this be changed? Uh, and also, I see that the industry has a very fixed perception about army officers, which I would not dwell much upon, but still, how can we change? And our value talks, this is one of our mission also. We are meeting the industry leaders. You are also invited here today. We are planning to go to the offices also. So I wanted to know your views about it.
Yeah. See, one is that the domains that you come from and the domains that you get into, they have very different principles of operating. So what happens is, uh, the fitments are different from, like, in the army, or in the armed forces, you have various ranks, right? So
Right,
and typically it is a tenure based or perform, I mean, it's largely tenure based, that you move up the ranks and you serve various stages, and or if there is an extraordinary opportunity that elevates the person early, or a reason for someone to not get their elevation on time. But largely, people, it is tenure based hierarchical structure in the armed forces. So, and you can correct me if I'm wrongly placed there. But
no, I will just, I would like to correct you here. uh, you see, there are, yes, tenure based things are there, but there are promotional exams, number one. uh, then you have then you have, as you keep moving up, the it's a pyramidal structure. So seats at the top are less. So not everybody makes it to the top. And when I'm saying top, I'm not talking about general level. I'm just saying that earlier it used to be lieutenant colonel. No, people, it used to be selection grade. Everybody was not becoming lieutenant colonel. So then it became colonel. Okay, so you have to pass certain exams, departmental exams, and then you make it. And not everybody gets to command his regiment, uh, uh, or not everybody moves past colonel. So there are checks and balances. It is not exactly that, the way it is perceived.
yeah, so you're absolutely right, and thank you for adding to that. What I meant was that it is not a tenure based promotion without any supporting processes of screening. Okay,
Right, right,
so for
right.
example, and thank you for adding that, you have your opportunities of getting screened and then move to the next level, something akin to performance. It's a way of looking at the conduct as well as the capability,
Absolutely.
both theoretical and behavioral, and then you basically get the opportunity. But there are milestones set that you can't appear for that exam before completing a certain tenure or something like that, right?
Okay.
So, which is what I meant. Unlike the corporate sector, which is, like you have a hierarchy and a process, the corporate sector or most of the companies in the corporate world have a way of looking at talent elevation movements, and 99% it is not tenure based or any exam linked, unless it is in specific professions like, for example, if you're an actuary, then you have to clear certain actuarial exams to go to the next level, and that's a very
Right.
rigid structure. But that's just one stream. For most of the other jobs, there is no correlation between tenure and where you're placed in the organization. It is largely the qualification, skills, and relevant experience that basically leads you to get into uh, get into different roles. So what happens is, that there are some perceptions, and by the way, I have recruited a lot of armed forces people in my
Oh,
previous
thank
job,
you. We are
right?
grateful.
So yeah,
Really
so,
grateful.
and even in my current role, I have interviewed at least 3 4 of them, and I will tell you some of the observations that I have and what could be solutions that we could deploy so that the employability at the right level becomes higher. So
Right.
one is that, when the kind of experience that we have in a structured environment like the armed forces, um, is a little different from the corporate sector. So I would suggest that, the transition period that we have from
Yeah.
for the people to move from corporate to the from the armed forces to the corporate is a period which is seen as an opportunity where you can actually prepare yourself uh, to ready yourself for roles like that. We also see those programs now on campuses. So there is campus to industry transition. So similarly, you can have armed forces to industry transition. And I have seen that a couple of you go to MDI, to the IIMs for courses, and then want to move into roles. But see, those roles, uh, peg you or make you compete with either entry or some experience plus entry level. So how can you make that experience more valuable? And
Yeah.
how can you look at doing maybe not generic courses, but there are some areas where I see a lot of scope. So there are organizations where, so let's look at two parts to this question or the problem. One is, what
Right.
are the hot skills and how can you prepare for the hot skills so that you
Right.
can increase your employability. Second is, in the generic areas. So where are typically colleagues recruited from the armed forces? Administration, security, safety, uh, procurement. I have seen some. These are typically the areas where
Operations.
operations, but operations is very generic, so you'll have to define what kind of operations. But let's say if it is manufacturing, then you are you're unless you have a technical background that supports. So if you're a mechanical engineer in armed forces, or if you're a chemical engineer in armed forces, or if you're an automobile engineer in armed forces, then you can get into operations for maintenance, for the operational roles that you see in the specific industries. So um, yes, but those are, I would say, fewer as compared to the other roles like admin,
Right.
safety, security, general administration, uh, and so on and so forth. But I would say that, when we interview colleagues, a um, the strengths that this uh, you know workforce brings is very, very high integrity, very high transparency, and result orientation. I see these three as key skills in the colleagues that come from work armed forces. Uh, and but what one thing that I also observe is that there is a lot of respect for hierarchy and ranks, and the corporate world is dissolving that. So one of the big behavioral changes is the hierarchical orientation. towards
Right.
moving towards a more flatter and a more casual or a direct environment. So for example, uh, you will call everybody sir and ma'am, but in most of the companies they call everybody by the first name. That breaks the boundaries and makes people more amiable and
Right.
more collaborative. In the armed forces, there are very clear segregation of duties. So your boundaries are set for a role, and you are supposed to just follow or at least not deviate from your guardrails, right? Um, in the corporate world, people who have done well are largely the ones who don't look at boundaries, work beyond boundaries, and are able to proactively work in other areas of the business, or at least are able to look at multiple aspects of the business. So this is also something that the interim preparation period can actually add to you.
Kavita,
Then
while I agree with your sorry, I agree with your first point, you know, but the second point, uh, that is what the industry is not aware that the kind of ambiguity which is there in army, there is no role actually. It is everything is your baby. I mean, industry. I mean, not industry, but largely the people outside have this perception that the role and the task, everything is clearly laid down and they do as per that only. No, it's not that. So there
I
is
please don't misunderstand me. First of all, a lot of my observations are generic, but they are
no, no.
direct
Your
observations.
observations are perfectly fine, and it is a candid talk. I'm really grateful that you are, coming out with what you have observed. Uh, but
I'll tell you.
uh,
I'll tell you. We hired six colonels, and
right,
then we hired two colleagues from the Navy, and we had
right,
three colleagues from the Air Force. Okay, so
right,
six plus two plus three, five. 11 people we had hired in one batch. And
lovely,
y- so you're right that the situations that you handle are extremely ambiguous. They are not normal situations. You have to take a call on the ground, on the spot. So your emergency response mechanism is very, very good, right? Your reaction and commitment to the cause on the spot is great. But what happens is, for you to, not every day you will have an emergency situation in a corporate job,
fine,
right? So what
fine,
happens is, in your day-to-day job, when there is a lack of an emergency, you look for structure. And sometimes in corporates, those structures are not defined and those guardrails are not carved out. So then people look for directions saying, please define my authority. Please define what is, the things that I can take care of. Like, for example, even disciplinary action. Now, as per law, if you're working in a factory, there are two or three designated positions that can take disciplinary action. But somebody from the army, I mean, I had a colleague, he said, this is not right. I have fired him or suspended him immediately on the spot. We don't have the right to do that, for
right.
example. So by
No, you
by
are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I have myself seen this happening, and I have experienced this thing. And initially, whatever you said, I think I was also like that. Uh, of course, you learn and you learn the tricks of the trade. You learn the methods, everything. But yes, yeah, whatever you say, I quite agree with it.
Yeah, so adaptability and agility is something that we have to be consciously improving or working on that, so that we can transition from one environment to the other environment. There's nothing right or wrong about one or the other, but it's just that we are moving from A to B. We have done very well in A. Now we want to do well in B, so we have to learn the mechanisms of thriving in a B, right? So that is what is I would say is important. So I would also say that not many corporates actually do a good job in onboarding these people very well.
Yeah, I will come to that.
Yeah.
Uh, Kavita, actually, what happens is it's a totally different scenario, and a little bit of mentoring in the initial stages
Yes.
and hand holding is what is required. So that onboarding drill, which is there, the process has to be a little better than what it is today.
Hmm. So what happens is, if you look at, for example, there are some areas which are very critical, and there is a dearth of good talent. And I think by the nature of their experience, armed forces colleagues have that edge. So, for example, if you see security, and by security, I don't mean the generic security, the security of your goods, the security of goods in transit, the security of your assets and people, and then security or from an IT perspective also. So many of you who have an engineering or a technical qualification, rather than going for general management short courses, it will be good if you can look at technical security qualifications. And uh, also, uh, also, there are various institutes who actually specialize in providing these qualifications and exposure. So if that is one area where because most of the companies now want to have less manpower, use more technology, and have more smart solutions. So one is you get into a space where you use technology and security together. So your digital security, your cyber security, and your people and asset security. So that is one part, which is a field where not a lot is gathered on the field, on the job, but a qualification would actually increase your chances of being placed at the right level. So that's one. Second is you have a very good instinct about occupational hazards, care for people, responding immediately. So it is also good if you can explore opportunities for, you know, uh, qualifications or uh, certifications in the space of health, safety, and environment. So there is a new terminology called HSE or EHS. Many companies call
Yeah,
it whatever way. But
HSC. Yeah,
if you look at HSC, this is one space where you can really, really thrive. And we don't have good people in the space of health, occupational health, in the space of occupational safety. And these two, there are certifications called NIBOSH, or there are
yeah.
certifications from the government of India, government of UK. There are online certifications. If you do that, you immediately increase your employability if you have that as a qualification. So instead of going for a generic course, you can actually opt for that along with that also. So that is the second
Lovely.
part.
Very
Then the
nice.
third, then the third part is you all work a lot and you have a very good sense of your environment when you work, because that's another skill that gets enhanced in your work, right? Perception and enhance. So I feel that if you work and you direct your qualifications or experience or exposure towards community development and environment, these are also two areas where a organizations are mandatorily required to invest. So they will need the right people to channelize those investments. And the second is you have environment is also an area where there is very less talent available. So if you, and these are skills, the security bit, the uh, the the
HSC.
HSC bit and the environment bit, all these are skills which do not need a lot of prior experience. When you get these certifications, you become good enough to compete with the others. So you don't need a gestation period or a prior experience to make them as good, make yourself as good as someone else in the market. So, which is why I'm saying that whenever you start, you get an edge, or you come at a level playing field with the others. So so that is one field. Community development I spoke about, and I spoke about environmental and
So,
environmental
Kavita,
sustainability.
Kavita, sorry, this community development which is there, it is not very clear. You are talking about from CSR point of view.
Yes, I'm talking from a CSR point of view, and there are very specific courses that you can do to become a champion in this and start working on it. Because all this needs is a lot of common sense, empathy, understanding of the community, perception, connect with people, and making sure that projects get executed. if you're able to get things done on time for the communities, you can actually become a great conduit between the communities that surround the factories or units, and you can actually develop a career in that. So that's another
So
bit.
this would be relevant to all the manufacturing setups like Medanta, Sterlite, and Hindustan Zinc, and of the sorts, which have lot of
Every, everybody, no, not just them. Any company that has profit in India,
right.
no matter what kind of
Okay, yes, they
organization,
have to spend CSR.
yeah.
Yeah, right,
So if you instead of going for generic courses, if you qualify yourself in some of these courses, I'll tell you, for example, I worked extensively with IIM Udaipur for starting three courses. We used to call them work integrated learning programs, and also with BITS Bilani. So we had over 400 people who actually were learning things while they were working. So if you look at, and we started two courses. One was on digital, because digitization and technology upgrade is not a luxury anymore. Every business needs to start using technology to their advantage. So one is that space. The second one is supply chain and operational excellence. That's also a 1 year course that they run, and I think the other IIMs also have. So if you go into that course rather than a generic course, it increases your chances of clubbing your experience and your qualification with this additional layer of preparation to get into the industry. And similarly, there are courses offered in communication. You guys are also very good in communication, a lot of you. So you can also get into courses which allow you to work on, external communication, in internal communication, building employee value propositions. These are three distinct jobs in large companies. So if you have a gift of writing, language, articulation, summarizing, communicating on behalf of the organization, because you follow rules very well and you write well, that's a great combination, and it makes you a great communications manager. So that is
right. So
another thing.
I will just summarize whatever, because a lot you have covered. So, and somewhere somebody also mentioned that let's not typecast. No, gentlemen, what she has covered actually is very relevant. Security, when we talk about security, what she has covered is it's not only the generic security, but try and upskill yourself and cover the entire aspect of security. There are courses available. You may be infantry, armored, artillery, signals officer. Get to the field security as a whole, and then
Absolutely. And Manish, Vijay has highlighted this. My suggestion will be to not look at some of these things in a personal manner. Of course,
yeah,
there
yeah.
are outliers in everything, but if you see, 90% of your people would be placed in these functions,
Yes, yes, yes.
right?
I'm coming to that. And aim of the talk one is also to understand how to break this mold. That why 90% are in this function only, right? So that is also one of the aims to understand from the perspective of an HR, and who better can tell us than a CHRO of a large company. So that is why. So what Kavita has said is upskill yourself where the where our inherent qualities can be utilized, our inherent strengths can be utilized. One is security section, securities where look at the security as a whole. Then digital marketing, the digital space. That is another thing which is emerging like anything, e-commerce. Everything is going digital. We are having conducting this webinar on Google Meet. Then it will be uploaded on YouTube. This is everything is going digital, from business to communications, everything. So that is what she covered. E-commerce is another area. Supply chain. So the idea is that don't join generic courses. Try and see.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
Manish, actually, I would say that you can join generic courses as well. You can join specialization courses. My point is, before you take a call, you should be aware of the options available. And
Yeah.
second is, I also feel that it is very important to look at three dimensions. One is your passion, one is your strength, and the third is an organization requirement. If the organization requires something, you have the skill but you're not passionate about it, you'll not be happy. If the organization
Absolutely.
requires something, you're passionate about it but you don't have the skill, again it won't cut eyes. If you're passionate about something and you have the skill but the organization doesn't need it, they will not hire you. so i
How
think
how how apt. Yeah,
so I think you will have to look at these three aspects to have a happy uh, job where you enjoy doing what you're doing. It needs to have a component of competence. It needs to have a component of passion about the job or this area that you work in. And the third is that there should be a need for that.
very important. Very important. So besides this, uh, you see, somewhere you said that armed forces officers are, uh, since they have been working in a structured organization, hierarchical organization, an organization which follows hierarchy, and we don't have such boundaries in the corporate. So when the officer is about to do make the transition, how does one prepare for it?
Now let me give you an example, and for someone who's completed the full tenure and has gone to a certain rank, and they get used to being addressed in a certain way, uh, that when they say something then it is heard and executed in a certain way. But when you take the same person and put the person in a completely new environment where there is a casual work culture, where there is less hierarchy, and probably the person is new, so it's like a beginner with a background. So I would say that um, one of the things that I feel, a few of the colleagues that I saw, they get into the roles without understanding the deliverables of the role. So one of the things that we can do or you can do is to make sure that you know what are the things that are needed in the role, and have a period of induction between the under, accepting the role and joining the job. Typically you take up a role and then you hand over, you have a few months, and then you basically join the position. As much as I have seen, there are some people who are readily available, but my suggestion would be that please take some time off to prepare yourself to understand the role well, deliverables of the role well, and ask for a proper induction. I also feel that the industry does not onboard this segment very well. There is a huge requirement to improve that onboarding process, because uh, because if we don't onboard even a non-armed forces person, if they're not onboarded well, they will not be engaged at the job. And
Right, right.
also I feel that there should be mechanisms that allow them to ask a lot of questions in the first 6 months, have a buddy at the workplace who will be able to integrate them with the organization seamlessly. Sometimes if you spend the first 6 months well with the person in the company, they are uh, less likely to not fail. They will succeed because once you form a great bond in the first 6 months and settle in well, then you also start thinking and integrating with the teams that you're working with. So that is also something which is very incumbent upon the organizations that onboard this talent, and work on that. Uh, just having the intent to hire is not good enough. Intent to hire and making them successful is very important in my view.
Yeah, I'll tell you a small incident, Kavita. I mean, I'm reminded of my job. So I joined a particular company after leaving army, and uh, it was quite a very good opening I got. I was lucky, and I joined there, and that was the first day. First day, uh, I had a cabin, this thing in Reliance Corporate Park,
Hmm.
and there this young guy comes to me and it says, "कि Manish, Madhu बुला रहा है आपको." So I was this was I was not expecting, though when I was about to join, I knew that I'm joining corporate sector and वहाँ पे सब नेम बेसिस पे होता है and all those things, but still वो थोड़ा सा पिंच हुआ. It's a fact. एक छोटा सा बच्चा आपको आके you have gone, आप गए हो, you had some respect and all this that, but later on slowly, and I accepted it gracefully, and I went. He was not only calling me by name, he was also calling my boss by name. So I, so I slowly learned. So this is it happens, but I'm telling you that we are also quite adaptable. The adaptability index is also pretty high. So we adapt to the culture how it is, you know. तो इसलिए जो आप कह रहे हो उसको मैं समझता हूँ कि आप क्या बोल रहे थे. It's very true. So
And along with this, I'm reading the comments, but I think that one of the things that we can do well is this gestation period of before joining, after accepting a role, understanding the role, and preparing yourself to be more successful in the role. So taking that small gap. Second is, I have seen many people who are technically very good, and for example, I interviewed a colleague who was an expert in the maintenance of aircrafts. And I
Mhm.
actually offered him the role of head of maintenance for all our plants, 21 plants. And he kind of backed off because he said, "Oh, but I've been maintaining aircrafts. How can I maintain machineries?" So, and I said, "We will support you. We will help you integrate." But he was reluctant. And then he said, "I don't want to be in the technical side. I want to be in the general manager side." So I said, "Okay." But I'm just saying is that a clarity
Yeah,
in your CV, and if
right.
you want to position your self with the technical background at a certain level, particular level, I would suggest that CV writing is very, very important. How you present your CV with the experience and with the skills, and how you articulate that during the interactions is also very important. For example, I was interviewing a lady from the Air Forces for procurement head, and we were interviewing her for the senior most role for the company, not a junior role or mid level, senior most role, because her experience was very solid and she had handled large scale deals. So what we did was, we the chairman of the company asked her, "What is your total spend and what are the number of people?" She misquoted the numbers, and after the interview she said, "I'm sorry, I completely fumbled on the numbers, and I couldn't connect the numbers to the number of people because he had following questions which could not correlate the numbers." So my suggestion is that if you are preparing for senior level roles, and if you are preparing for even mid level to senior level roles, make your CV corresponding to that. Make sure that your stories that you give, examples that you give, and the
Yeah,
way you present them, you also should prepare for that. And there are ways of preparing it. There are people who can help you understand to highlight certain things in your CV, so that you can actually highlight those areas even before the person meets you, they know about you. So
right.
those are also things that you can actually work on, and it can help you get more visibility.
Very nice. Kavita, you'll be glad to know that just 2, 3 days back only we have conducted this talk also about CV, and uh, exactly the same thing what you have highlighted here, and we are glad that you are coming out with these points. Uh, so, how important is, while we have, I understand that technical and non-technical and some specific courses, etc., can help, but there's a uh, for the segment which is 5 to 10 years, which is coming out after 5 to 10 years, uh, doing MBA and from a good institute also like ISB or MDI or XLRI, etc. Uh, is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely, it is helpful.
So so that is, and what about people today only? An officer is, in fact, a lot of them text me and ask me on about online MBA. What happens is while we are in service, a lot of people join these distance learning programs, online MBAs, etc. Is it helpful? Of course, no qualification goes waste. But from from the job's point of view, is it is it good?
I would see. So first of all, I want to put a disclaimer that this is my opinion, and this
Yeah,
is what I look at. So you're absolutely right. Every course that you do, whether it is distance or direct or on campus, it does add a lot of value, and it depends on how seriously you've participated in the program, whether it was from a distance or. And I think COVID has taught us that everything can be done through technical platforms from a distance. However, my 2 cents on this is that when you go for a campus program, it allows you to integrate yourself with a different environment. It has a lot of other
absolutely.
side benefits that that you may not have sitting at home or sitting from a distance when you're participating. So the camaraderie you build, the skills that you enhance, the side conversations or uh, you know uh, tangential conversations that you have with people on various related or unrelated subjects also in a way help you prepare yourself for the new world, because then you have a big number of people that is actually working towards that goal, and you get integrated with that process. So that is one thing. And
Don't worry about the comments. You go ahead.
yeah, I was reading the comment.
No,
Actually, I've
don't
had,
worry about the
yeah,
comments.
I
We
have
will
had
read. We
a
will
lot of.
read it after this.
Okay, okay, then it's fine. I've had a lot of army colleagues in my team in HR and in admin or in organizational development, team building. So yes, but uh, we also need to understand that in India, there's a lot of competition for good jobs. So for every role, there are multiple good, options available. So we have to really present ourselves in the best form so that we can compete with the best, and then we can secure those opportunities for ourselves.
Right, right. Well said, Kavita. I want to ask you, though you said that you have colleagues in the HR also, but I have not seen many people in the HR. There are two things. I personally feel that HR is a very closely guarded kind of a this thing, and you people do. Uh, I'm talking only about the HR. Uh, do bother about do take give weightage to the qualification in HR. Uh, there is a perception amongst army officers. I will tell you. We all think that we are very good in HR. Yeah. No, I'm telling you that's the way it is. We think that we are very good in HR, and which we are actually because the kind of detailing we do in the army or air force or navy is pretty different. But I also understand that the corporate HR is quite different, and
I
it's a very large domain. It has got too many parts to it,
I would
and
say that. Hmm. Yeah, please.
I'll just pick. And second thing, second domain where I think uh, I would like you to tell us is learning and development. Uh, that is another role, and especially I have seen a lot of in the learning and development, a lot of ladies are there, and our lady officers, besides leadership role, learning and development also is one field which is quite apt, and they take to it like fish takes to water.
Yeah. Are you that's the
Yeah,
question?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there are two parts to your question. I will take it in the two parts, Manish. One is that in HR, I do agree that your people skills are exceptional, and I have observed it as well. Colleagues from the army background, armed forces. So that is definitely there. Um what happens is when we look at HR function or the people function, we typically, define it in a general way that this is a function that deals with people. Actually,
Yeah.
let me tell you, there is no role, no function that can do without dealing with people. So every manager is a people manager. But the people in the HR function um, have certain jobs. Some are generic roles like business partners in the locations, I think you guys can do that really well. But there are some specialist jobs like a rewards head. So somebody who needs to understand the fundamentals of tax, fundamentals of the law of the land, and also some principles on how incentives have to be designed, how business imperatives have to be converted into a scheme that allows the organization to fulfill those objectives, and so on and so forth. But none of this is not learnable, I would say, which is why I said if you are interested in HR, don't do a general management course. Do a course in HR which allows you to understand the fundamentals of rewards and compensation benefits, helps you understand uh, industrial relations and disciplinary action. By disciplinary action also, I don't mean the general discipline, right? Disciplinary action means if somebody on the shop floor does not do ABCD and multiple areas, right? It could be a efficiency loss, production loss, not following the process, or not following safety standards, or is misbehaving or committing a activity or a task that is not defined. How do you take disciplinary action for those? And there is a proper law which defines this is what you do in incident number 1, number 2, number 3. And you need to know the standing orders of that location. You need to know laws of collective bargaining, and understand that when you deal with the unions or unionized workforce. So that is the IR part. One is the rewards part. Then you have uh, talent management. These are frameworks that can be understood very easily if you have a aptitude and temperament to deal with frameworks like that. So my suggestion again is, please choose a course which allows you to orient yourself and get familiar with these frameworks. And the good thing is there are some very good courses by XLRA which are distance. They have a combination of on campus and off campus. Please enroll for that. You will get good roles and options. Second is there are courses from, for example, SPHR, or you know SHRM. There are bodies that actually prepare people for HR professions or HR jobs. So if you equip yourself with those, you will also be far more sharper in your discussions to appear for an HR job, and you will definitely be able to secure that job. I don't see any reason why you will not be able to secure that job. So my suggestion, and I can tell you, one of our most successful HR leaders in the business for at ICICI was a guy from the army. His name is Vinod Dor. He's still doing very well in HR, and there was many others, right? So there were some who are extremely successful, some of the are middle successful, and there are some who feel that we came unprepared, and they are met with a lot of surprises. So my suggestion is, please be prepared for the role, whether it is HR, whether it's technology, whether it is technical operations, whatever is the area of your interest. Take a qualification that supports your interest and then present yourself well. I think if you do that in the right sequence, you will be able to land the right jobs. And even in finance
Right.
for that matter, yeah, if you have a aptitude on risk and understanding risk and managing risk, if you want to do underwriting, there are courses that can make you ready as good as the other people.
Right. So basically, what I understand is that you have to understand first what you want to do. What is your
Yes,
passion? What do you want to do? What are your interests?
yes,
And then pursue those fields, acquire, upskill yourself as per the industry standard, and then switch. Don't make a random switch and then later on complain that we don't get the jobs we want. And may I also, what about the learning and development?
yes. So learning and development is another field where there is a easier transition possible, because what are the skills needed in learning and development? A, your curiosity to understand what course connects, develops what skill, and how does it impact the performance of the individual in that domain. If you are able to demonstrate that and the discipline of executing the programs, you're like a project manager or a program manager for the learning curriculums that have to be deployed in the company. So if that is a skill that you have, I would say you can have a better transition into that role also. And I would say that is a lot more easier than the other aspects. And there are people who move from one domain to the other. I actually attended a course with Dave Ulrich, who's considered like the guru of HR globally. And he told me that the best HR professionals are the most well-rounded professionals where they have seen multiple sectors, different type of industries. They have seen multiple geographies. They have seen multiple sub-functions of the same function, and they have led the function at various levels, whether in an individual capacity, leading others, leading leaders, or at geographical levels, to lead a geography, to lead a global function, to lead a region. So it allows you to look at yourself as a wholesome professional when you move from one vertical of a function to the other, or from one function to the other. And you will be happy to know that nowadays organizations are far more open in moving talent across different functions and different subdomains within the same function. There is a lot more openness to that now.